Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Hari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jasodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jasodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Jamuna Tira Vandachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Hari Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Hari Jasodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jasodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Vishnu Paramananda Prabhupada Charges Shri Srimad language the Sri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Japan BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Janitili Lam Vishnu Paramananda Prabhupada Charges Shri Srimad language the Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Rim Jugaho Namo Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Dham Ki Mathura Dham Ki Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Jamuna Devi Ki Ganga Devi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Sankirtan Yagna Ki Sri Sri Radha Gopinath Ji Ki. All glories to the simple devotees, all glories to the simple devotees, all glories to the simple devotees. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 2, Text number 24. Ashinaha Samsvisham Tishtam Bunjanaha Pariyatam Mahim Chintayano Rishikesham Apasyat Tanmayam Jagat Ashina Sambhisham Tachtam Bhunjanaha Paryatan Mahim Chintayano Rishikesham Apasyatan Mayam Jagat Ashina, while sitting comfortably in his sitting room or on the throne. Samvisham, or lying on his bed. Dishtam, or staying anywhere. Bunjanaha, while eating. Pariyatan, while walking or moving. Mahim, on the ground, going hither and thither. Chintayana, always inimically thinking of. Rishikesham, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of everything. Apashyat, observed. Tatmayam, consisting of him, Krishna, nothing more. Jagat, the world. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. While sitting on his throne or in his sitting room, while lying on his bed, or indeed while situated anywhere, and while eating, sleeping, or walking, Kamsa saw only his enemy, the Supreme Lord, Rishikesha. In other words, by thinking of this all-pervading enemy, Kamsa became unfavorably Krishna conscious. Purport. Srila Rupa Goswami has described the finest pattern of devotional service as Anukulyena Krishnanu Shilana, or cultivating Krishna consciousness favorably. Kamsa, of course, was also Krishna conscious, but because he regarded Kamsa as his enemy, even though he was fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, his Krishna consciousness was not favorable to his existence. Krishna consciousness, favorably cultivated, makes one completely happy, so much so that a Krishna conscious person does not consider Kaivala Shukam, or merging into the existence of Krishna, to be a great gain. Kaivalyam Narakayate, for a Krishna conscious person, even merging into the existence of Krishna or Brahman, as impersonalists aspire to do, is uncomfortable. Kaivalyam Narakayate Tridasha Pur Akasha Pushpayate. Karmis hanker to be promoted to the heavenly planets, but a Krishna conscious person considers such promotion a will-o'-the-wisp, good for nothing. Durdanditren Durdhantendriya kala sarpa patali proktata damstrayate. Yogis try to control their senses and thus become happy, but a Krishna-conscious person neglects the methods of yoga. He is unconcerned with the greatest of enemies, the senses, which are compared to snakes. For a Krishna-conscious person who is cultivating Krishna consciousness favorably, the happiness conceived by the karmis, gyanis, and yogis is treated as less than a fig. Kamsa, however, because of cultivating Krishna consciousness in a different way, that is, inimically, was uncomfortable in all the affairs of his life. Whether sitting, sleeping, walking, or eating, he was always in danger. This is the difference between a devotee and a non-devotee. A non-devotee or atheist who cultivates God consciousness by trying to avoid God in everything. A non-devotee or atheist also cultivates God consciousness by trying to avoid everything. For example, so-called scientists who want to create life by a combination of chemicals regard the external material elements as supreme. Such scientists do not like the idea that life is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. As clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita, Mamaivamsa jiva loke jiva bhutaha. The living entities do not arise from a combination of material elements such as earth, water, air, and fire, but are separated portions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one can understand the position of the living entity as a separated portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by studying the nature of the living entity, one can understand the nature of the Supreme Godhead, since the living entity is a fragmental sample of the Godhead. But because atheists are not interested in God consciousness, they try to be happy by cultivating Krishna consciousness in various unfavorable ways. Although Krishna was always absorbed in thoughts of Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was not happy. A devotee, however, whether sitting on a throne or beneath a tree, is always happy. Srila Rupa Goswami resigned from office as a government minister to sit beneath a tree, yet he was happy. Tyaktva turnam ashesha mandala patihi senim sada tuchavat. Sat Goswami Astika 4. He did not care for his comfortable position as a minister. He was happy even beneath a tree in Vrindavan, favorably serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the difference between a devotee and a non-devotee. For a non-devotee, the world is full of problems, whereas for a devotee, the entire world is full of happiness. Vishvam Purnam Sukhayati, Viddhi Mahendra Dhischai Kittayati, Yet Karunyam Kataksha, Vaibhavavatam Tam Gauram Eva Stumaha, Chaitanya Chandramrita 95. This comfortable position of a devotee can be established by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yasmin stito na dukena gurunapi vichalyate. Bhagavad Gita 6:22. Even when a devotee is superficially put into great difficulty, he is never disturbed. A very beautiful purport. Complete purport. The subject matter is Kamsa's meditation on Krishna. A very interesting and a very important example, and not one that you're supposed to follow. It's a negative example, and yet it has positive features to it. In fact, it is mentioned by Narada Muni and Yudhisthira in a discussion with Yudhisthira in the 7th canto, 1st chapter, around text 29, 30, 31, 32. The question is asked regarding how one can focus, or what is the process of focusing on God. And Yudhisthira is told by Narada Muni that that Kamsa, Shishupal, the gopis, Narada, the Yadavas, they all achieve perfection by constantly thinking of Krishna. This question, this response disturbed Uttara, the mother of Parikshit. Are we right? A mother of Parikshit Maharaj. Yes. The grandmother of Janmanjay. She was disturbed because she said, how is it possible that they all got liberated? I mean, there has to be a distinction. Therefore, it was explained to her that there is a distinction. They do all get liberated, but they don't get the same kind of liberation. So Srila Rupa Goswami takes this matter up in the Nectar of Devotion, as Prabhupada calls it, the summary study of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. You'll find on page 120 and 121, the Prabhupada discusses the different types of liberation, and he explains how Kamsa's meditation on Krishna is pratikul, and it is the opposite of anukul bhakti, just like the verse, anukul yena krishnanushilanam bhaktir uttama. The highest type of bhakti, one of its qualities is it must be favorable. Kamsa's cannot be considered bhakti because it's unfavorable, it's pratikul. He did meditate, he did get liberation, but it's still not considered bhakti. Then Srila Rupa Goswami explains that it is not the same to be in the kingdom of the king as to be able to enter into the palace of the king and meet the king personally. So some of these persons who got perfection, they were able to associate directly with the Lord. Kamsa, in his type of liberation, was not. Of course, we know that because Kamsa is originally Kamsa and Shishupala Jayan Vijay, they did get to meet once again with Lord Narayan. They are his eternal associates. But it took one more birth in the Leela of Lord Chaitanya to make this possible. So, nevertheless, all of this is to point out that even if you meditate on Krishna with fear, Kamsa did so. He achieved perfection meditating on the Lord out of fear. Shishupal meditated on the Lord out of envy. The gopis meditated on the Lord out of lust. Granted, it was a transcendental lust. Each one of them had a different type of mental impression of the Lord, but the focal point of all of their meditations was Krishna. So the point is made that somehow or other think of Krishna, as it is said that what was that verse? Akama sarva kama uvar muksha kama udavate tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Whatever your position is, whether you're full of desires, you have no desires, or you desire liberation, take it up with Krishna. Bring it to Krishna. Don't go to some other deity. And so, this is the principal point here. It is a spectacular, type of point that even extreme hostility, as Kamsa demonstrated, still leads to a type of perfection. Again, this is not the kind of perfection we're supposed to emulate. We are not supposed to become unfavorably disposed towards Krishna. Another point here, Prabhupada, of course, deprecates the impersonal Kaivalya Sukham, the happiness coming from oneness. He also deprecates the position of the yogis who are so worried about controlling their senses. He states the example which is often given for a devotee of the Lord, that the senses, which are like a vicious serpent's teeth, the teeth of the serpent are broken. No, they do not pose any danger for a devotee. Of course, you can say that doesn't sound right to me. It seems like I'm being victimized and so many other people around me are being victimized by our senses. Well, and then we say, well, that's just because you didn't do it carefully enough. You didn't do your bhakti carefully enough. But bhakti will control the senses, rishikesha, rishikenam, sevanam, bhaktir uchate. Again, then he starts to attack the scientists. You know, Prabhupada is using what he called Bhaktisiddhanta chopping technique. He said Bhaktisiddhanta's followers, some of them didn't like the fact that he was so heavy, that he used a chopping technique. But Prabhupada said, I have adopted the chopping technique of my Guru Maharaj. And this is what he does. You know, he just cuts down the opposition one by one by one. So now he's going to attack the latest variety of atheists, the material scientists, who do not like to admit the existence of God. They simply admit, just like the types of, what's the word? The type of material Vedantists who simply see gross material elements. Huh? What is that called? Sankhya's, yes, the Sankhya's. Sankhya philosophy, the mundane Sankhya's, they list all the different elements, but they leave out the transcendent element of the soul and finally the super soul. So the mundane scientists do the same, very expert at enumerating all of the material elements, unable to see God within them. And he says, of course, sometimes Prabhupada will say, even the atheists believe in God because they believe in Him as death. And finally they surrender unto Him. So nobody can avoid God. He usually makes that point. Then finally he says the devotee is always happy, and he quotes the example of Srila Rupa Goswami, who was a government minister but became happy living under a tree. Now you know that the Goswamis did become Babajis. However, their Babaji status was not one of real withdrawal, because as we know, they were constantly thinking of how to deliver the world, and they produced transcendental literatures which were, at least we can say, they were meant to establish the Gaudiya Siddhanta for the whole line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So they were very active. It was not an inactivity, but it was a constant activity, and it was a deep meditation. And they were very, very happy. They didn't require all kinds of material arrangements. They lived in the most simple fashion. It's a difficult example, but it is an example nevertheless that we have before us. Prabhupada showed probably the most opposite example you could ever find. Instead of living simply, he had incredible amounts of facilities given to him by Krishna. You know, he would always say, in every temple I've got 10 automobiles and 100 servants waiting for me, and I have 100 such palaces, 108 palaces like that all over the world. Unlimited facility, same meditation. I was told that by a person who was associating intimately with Prabhupada when he was living at Radha Temple, his favorite prayer that he would sing regularly, Sat Goswami Astakam. Favorite prayer, right? He used to meditate on the Samadhi and Bhajan Kutir of Srila Rupa Goswami. And he used to love to sing Sat Goswami Astakam. This was a great inspiration to Srila Prabhupada. You know, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati found the right person, and Prabhupada, just as Gorkashore Das Babaji Maharaj found the right person, you can say Bhakti Siddhanta found the right person, and Gorkashore Das Babaji Maharaj. This is the nature of the line of disciplic succession. They get the essence. The qualified disciple understands the essence of instruction from the spiritual master. Prabhupada he understood the core truths that came from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through the disciplic succession. And he found deep inspiration. And so externally, it is very hard sometimes to determine Prabhupada's position, because you don't see someone who appears to be detached. You see someone who is absorbed in many kinds of management, bank accounts, properties, disciples, so many different things, But this person has all the qualities of the six Goswamis. He is detached, He is constantly searching for Krishna, but he does it all in a way which is appropriate for the time, the place, the circumstance. It's a big legacy, it's a big challenge for us also. I mean, Prabhupada certainly showed the example of a modern day Goswami. If Bhaktivedanta Thakur was called the seventh Goswami, he was called that by Srila Kumar Ghosh, the grandfather of our friend Tarun, or great-grandfather, I guess grandfather of Tarun Kanti Ghosh. No, was it Srila Kumar? His father was, there was Tarun Kanti, and then his father was Tushar Kanti, correct. And then the grandfather, Srila Kanti, yes. Associate of Lord Chaitanya, and he called him the seventh Goswami, associate of Bhaktivedanta Thakur, he called him the seventh Goswami. You could say Prabhupada was the eighth Goswami, if you wanted to. I suppose you could. I'm not making a big statement here, but the point is, he had the qualities, the qualifications of the Goswamis, but he really was a modern person. Although, in many ways, he was not. He was extremely traditional. We have to recognize that. Prabhupada really was unbending and didactic in many senses. Didactic, and, he was very fundamental in his upholding of the Vaishnava Siddhanta. He didn't do a lot of experimenting, he didn't do a lot of fancy footwork intellectually. He really didn't do that. He tried to preserve the tradition and to package it and distribute it. And Bhaktisiddhanta basically did that same thing. And Prabhupada, when you really see what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati did, you'll be amazed that pretty much most of the groundbreaking ways of spreading Krishna consciousness were done in a seed-like form by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and then expanded in a worldwide basis by Prabhupada. He's really kept closely to his Guru Maharaj. It's amazing. He says he only associated with him 5 or 6 times, at most 10. He didn't have a lot of association physically, but he got the essence. He really understood. And we have to understand, somehow he got the blessings. He got the mercy. So, sometimes disciples feel, I don't get to see my Guru Maharaj. Some people don't get to see their Guru Maharaj as much as other disciples can see their Guru Maharaj, or as other disciples see other people's Guru Maharajas. But it doesn't necessarily determine whether or not you get the mercy. It doesn't determine that, because association, first of all, comes through Vani, through sound vibration, and how you receive the sound vibration. It just doesn't come by Vapu. I mean, Prabhupada gives the example that an insect is sitting, on the throne of the king. He's very intimate, but he's sucking blood. He doesn't know how to associate with the king. So we have to know how to associate, not necessarily associate. We have to know how to associate. And of course, as always, the key ingredient is humility. Humility. Humility, receptivity for instruction. But, truth be told, we were not very humble. We may not have even been very receptive. In fact, our example may be more like all of these different things. I don't want to say it was like, I would not say, clearly I'm not saying that it was like Kamsa or Shishupala. I'm not saying that because, nowadays, you can just hear it, here it is on the internet. He gave a lecture and he said it. This is the proof, you see, that this is the proof. Yeah, so I'm going to stop here. We got 15 minutes in case, 10, 12, 15 minutes if you have any thoughts. or queries? Fire what? Savo, something to say. I always admired Sabhavati Prabhu as a outstanding preacher. You know, he is blessed with the mood of Lord Chaitanya, a very dynamic preacher. Super preacher. Super preacher. Sabhavati can go to anybody, any kind of materialists, and get them involved with Krishna consciousness. That's your great, great qualification. Great qualification. It's an amazing qualification. Natural desire to preach. How's your previous father-in-law, that guy Crocodile Dundee? Has he still got crocs up there?
My son.
He's up there. Biggest croc in the world, right? We have to be like that, right? Fight the crocodiles. But not in the water. That's example given. If you want to fight a crocodile, if you want to fight the enemy, do it on your own terms. Figure out, be smart enough to get the enemy on your terms. Don't try to fight on their terms. This is a very good instruction to figure out how to deal with life. Figure out what your terms are and then deal with it from your own position. Takes some doing, but you have to think that way. Otherwise you keep getting defeated. Anybody got something to say? Madhavisa Prabhu. I don't know how we're gonna continue our discussions, Madhavisa. It was really good. He's got such a perfect memory. Very strong memory. I think sometimes, Madhavisa took a little, well, I don't mind if I was going to say it took a detour, but I mean, that's why I was going to prove that you didn't. He got married and he had children, and I think that in some ways what I feel is that the reason why your memory is still so intact to so many things is that for 15 years or whatever, while you were taking care of your family, my mind got so filled up with so many details that I forgot so much of the early years. One thing that's very clear from seeing old devotees, it's not how you run the race, it's how you finish the race. And the jury's out. The jury is out on everybody. We have to see how we finish. And I worry about that for myself. I do worry. I'm always worried about that. Especially I'm taking my little detour. I worry about it. Am I going to get back to Govardhan, I worry. I got this disciple, Kirtana, she's in the hospital now. She's worried. She's a powerful yogi though, but it really is, when death comes near, then you really have to examine, am I Krishna conscious? Can I get Krishna now? It comes down to that. That's why my disciple, I told you that story that I think I said to you here, I have this elderly disciple, Vidura, in Los Angeles. I told the story here, that's why he said, I want to die in the midst of service. Anybody got questions? Also, I'll say something about Ramai Maharaj, that I said this to Bhavananda, that I think that you are very fortunate to have him here, because I think that he is one of the most good-hearted persons I ever have met in my life. And I can't think of a nicer person that there is to be with than you. And I know what a nasty person I am, because I know how little you spend time with me. I know what that means. But you should know how much I like your association, and I think that you have just the right nature, to be in charge of this yatra. You're a wonderful person. And I think that's good that you haven't taken disciples. I think that's a very good thing, because I think it allows you to, not have, you're very uncompromised in your position in every respect. And I think there's even great strength to sannyasis not taking disciples, because I think, by and large, most disciples get married, and a great many of the issues that gurus have to deal with disciples is even either how to avoid marriage, how to get married, or how to deal with it once you are married. And really, for a sannyasi, that's not really their business. That's why, traditionally, I don't know if sannyasis really took so many disciples. I mean, it's something that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati did a lot of things, and Prabhupada followed his footsteps, and we follow his. But the reality is, like someone like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had many disciples. He was a householder. So there's a great strength to the position of a sannyasi who is unencumbered by disciples, which means, you are the guru of all the varnas and ashrams. So it's not that you're not a guru, it's just the issue of certain things that happen with initiation are not troublesome. And what could I say about my godbrother Bhavananda Prabhu? Still handsome in his 60s. Still the best looking man in his 60s. I mean, it's been a great treat for me to be with my godbrothers. I must say, it's been a rare treat. Whatever pleasure there is being with disciples can't quite come up to being with godbrothers. Because when you're with your godbrothers, you're close to your guru. Even closer than when you're with... I think that's Prabhupada's power, that he could just be with practically, very rarely with his godbrothers, but somehow he really had connection with Bhaktisiddhanta. Because I feel the happiness we feel, it's not only because of Prabhupada, but it's also because we love each other. We've shared a great many things together. But it's been a real treat here. I'm very, very grateful to all of you. Grateful to everybody else also for letting me spend my time with my godbrothers. I know in other places I gave more time to disciples. I have to apologize to any of you who felt a little neglected. But, Chanakapana says, when it comes down to it, you have to save yourself first. So finally, I was a little selfish here, and I took the opportunity. I neglected to say something about Nareshwar Prabhu, my host. But he's a mean character. He's almost as mean as I am. We're both hard by nature, but not really. We have soft hearts, but hard exteriors. But Naresh and I get along very well. Both of us are practical persons. Mostly I'm a practical person, I think. You got to be practical to have survived in Manhattan. Every day when I'd go to school, I had to decide which block I was going to walk down and which gang I was going to deal with. Every day. I had to just decide which gang I was going to deal with and whether I was going to fight or avoid fighting. People don't understand the way I am, but they should know there was a lifetime in preparation. I love it, boy. Nothing better than a good fight. Even Prabhupada said that, right? After the Bombay incident. I mean, Prabhupada worked and struggled and fought for 2 or 3 years, 4 years, when he finally got that contract finally sealed. When everybody was out of the room, there was only a few of us left in the room, he leaned back and said, "It was a good fight." And this person, Prabhupada was such a fighter. What a battler. What a battler he was. Loved it. He actually loved it. He was fighting, you know. He got this army together and he just took on the world. He really did. He took on as much of the world as he could get to in a span of 11 years or so, 11 to 12 years. He just took it all on and fought. Assembled a bunch of, you know, monkey soldiers. It was like that. It wasn't a bunch of ruffians, monkey soldiers. And he just, you know, kicked the butts of everybody. Amazing. Wish that we were so bold and ferocious as Prabhupada. Actually, we would have been. I'll tell you, the thing that has deprived us most of our strength is the internal dealings within this movement. That has deprived us of our greatest strength. Nothing from outside can ever weaken you, but what happens inside, that's what weakens you. It's when your own family gets on your case, that is very hard to deal with. Just, you lose your, you know, will to fight. You don't mind getting shot from the enemy, but when your own people are shooting, it's hard. And if you say, why do they do that? Because people are not purified yet. That's why, because they're not purified. There's still envy, and they get envious of other people in various ways, and it's nasty business. That's what, if there's anything that has been discouraging to all of us who are senior devotees, it's seeing that internal mentality of ill will. I don't want to get you too worked up about it, but it's there. I mean, if you don't know it by now, you got your head in the ground. Because it's even there in a temple setting. It's not just, I'm not talking about old things, I'm talking about day-to-day business. Anyway, we have to go forward. What can be done? It's just the way it is. Shouldn't end on a sour note like that. What should we say that's a little bit more positive? Go, Seppa.
Maybe you could tell us a bit about your preaching activities with the academics.
My preaching with the activities with the Cambridge academics, I have to be very honest with you, Seppa. I don't preach to them. I don't preach to them. It may be because I'm a student, and when you're a student, you're sort of the low man on the totem pole. I'm not an ordinary student. I'm the same age as all of these people. I've also had a career, and I'm a successful person, and they know that. So really, I'm not a low man on the totem pole. But what I found is that I basically make friends. And they get to see me and my lifestyle, and that preaches. That's the preaching. They come to my house, they see the deity, I got full-size deity Prabhupada, they see Gornitai, they talk to me, and that's basically. I want to thank you, Vrindavaneshwari, for your nice association. I just want to tell you that. I know, I'm just letting you know that I appreciate it. Very good devotee. Very intelligent and nice lady. You know, I have to admit that I don't do much preaching to them. It's just inappropriate. It's inappropriate in that atmosphere. I have to say, a lot has changed. A lot of times I find that, I don't know what it is about me, but somehow or other I've just found that I'd rather just be friendly with people. That's the thing I was trying to tell you about what Keshav Bharti said to me. That, you know, all of my life since being a devotee, I've been preaching and this and that, and now I'm just starting to get to appreciate other people just for what they are. And I find, though, that somehow has a very nice effect on them. If I have an opportunity, I'll say something, but I don't have an agenda in my mind when I deal in Cambridge with people. I don't have an agenda. In fact, I have to be honest, I don't even have an agenda when I go out and travel. I don't have an agenda. I just want to meet people on their own terms and see what their life is about. And if they want to hear something from me, then I give it to them. Maybe that'll change again, I don't know. But something's changed in me that makes me this way now. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. But that's the way I've become. Damodar Maharaj said to me, he said, you're a lot nicer human being, even if you're not as good a devotee anymore. That's what he said. I took it as a compliment. Rabindra Swarup used to say, in ISKCON, first you learn how to be a pure devotee, then you learn how to be a human being. Maybe I'm just learning those lessons now, how to be a human being. Again, it didn't end on a real high note, but sorry about that. Well, here we are with the Pujari getting ready to blow the conch. I just say one more word, and then you can do so. I want to thank you all very much for allowing me to be here. I pray to the presiding deities and to all the Vaishnavas that I can come back many more times to be in your association, and thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.